Hi, I've been asked to talk tonight about what it's like to be on the receiving end of massive state censorship. I was recruited to work for MI5, which is the UK Domestic Security Service. That is usually, or used to be, truncated down to UKSS, but they realised that didn't sound too good, so they changed that in the 1990s. I worked there for 6 years in the 1990s, where I met my former partner, David Shaler, and we saw so many things going wrong, including illegal telephone taps, spying on government ministers, innocent people being put in prison, bombs that could and should have been prevented going off on UK streets, up to and including state-sponsored murder. And after 6 years of this, we decided that this just was not what we'd signed up to do, so we left and we decided to blow the whistle, which meant in the UK going to the press. And then we felt the full force of the state reprisals, because the intelligence agencies in the UK have probably the most draconian laws protecting them out of any Western democracy. There is a piece of legislation called the Official Secrets Act, which ensures that anyone who's ever worked for the services becomes a criminal even if they report crime on the part of those services. You can never say anything ever to anyone about what you've seen going on there, even if that includes murder. That piece of law, though, also applies to journalists. They can break the law if they report what the whistleblower is saying. So I ended up having to go on the run, literally, around Europe, live in hiding for almost a year, live in exile for 2 years, and my ex-partner went to prison twice because we reported state-sponsored murder. We also saw friends and families being arrested, and we saw journalists being arrested and prosecuted, and in some cases convicted, for daring to report these disclosures. Now, as I said, there's the Official Secrets Act, but there's another battery of behind-the-scenes means that they can use to stifle dissent in the UK. These include things like civil law injunctions, which they applied against the media and against the whistleblowers. There are also more informal networks of things like the D-Notice Committee in the UK, which is a volunteer committee of senior media people as well as intelligence people who censor themselves. And we also have a sort of charmed circle of journalists who write about these issues, whose jobs depend on reporting what they are told to report. So they self-censor as well. It's a cultural thing. And this is a major problem in our society, I think, certainly in the UK, but in many other countries too, because you end up with a closed groupthink in the intelligence community. You end up in a situation where people within government are too frightened to speak out, which then leads to illegal wars based on lies, as we saw in the UK, where we see things like the application of torture by states like the US and the UK. People are too frightened to speak out. In fact, recently in the UK there have been a number of intelligence officers who appear to have perjured themselves in UK courts by saying, no, of course we weren't involved in the torture of terrorist suspects, but lo and behold, they were. And of course we also saw a document, a very notorious document that was leaked, called the Downing Street Memo. And in this, it recorded the minutes of a meeting between Tony Blair and his advisors in the run-up to the Iraq War. And the head of MI6, the external intelligence gathering organisation, was recorded to have said that the facts were being fitted around the policy, the predetermined policy, the decision to go to war. Now, this is why we need whistleblowers. This is why we need leaks, so that we can hold the governments and the intelligence agencies to account. This is what our media should be doing, but they're frightened off. And I really wish that WikiLeaks had been established in 1997 rather than 2007. So it's a real privilege to be here, and please all keep pushing for more and more disclosure and more transparency and accountability of government. Thank you.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Good. So at WikiLeaks, we are kind of a canary in the coal mine because we specialize in taking material that is censored or is legally injuncted, that is classified, that people really don't want revealed, and presenting it to the world. About once every 2 weeks, someone threatens to sue us, and that goes forward to a next level about once every month. However, we started out under the basis that the least transparent governments in Africa and the former Soviet Union were the ones that would benefit the most from publishing revelations, getting stuff out to the public, revealing corruption. But it turns out it's a global problem. When money is laundered from Kenya by the president, it goes into Swiss banks, it goes into London banks, it goes into property in Australia. Similarly, censorship is a global problem. Censorship is in fact at a technological level led by the West. So-called democracies like the United Kingdom have secret courts with secret court hearings that produce secret orders demanding that the press censor papers. They've demanded it of us. We've released some of those court papers. And now, as every form of media moves onto the internet, newspapers, TV, the communications between political parties and their supporters, the communications between every individual here in this room, we find a position where technological censorship is able to affect probably what will be every media in the world. Now, some of you may have known that we've released detailed secret blacklists of censorship from many countries, many times, in fact, from Thailand, from China, from Australia, from Norway, from Denmark, and we hope from Germany later on. These countries swap information on these lists. And when the lists are secret, when they're kept out of sight, there is no transparency. In the case of Australia, when we released the secret censorship blacklist, it was found that only 32% of the list was related to underage images at some stage. But politically, it had been pushed as a mechanism to combat child pornography, and that's probably a story familiar to many of you in this room. So, what is the big picture? Why is this happening now between governments? Why are they responding in the same way? Well, the internet has been a fixed target for about 8 years, and at the same time has become more and more important politically and economically. So these power interests in the various countries have been moving together to try and take control of something that threatens their interests. Whenever states come together into a superstate like the European Union, or states all over the world are coming together informally, becoming globalized informally into a compatible union of laws, you have a situation where the new standard is to be defined. And that's the battle at the moment. What is the new standard for publishing freedoms? What is the new standard for communication? We're protected somewhat by placing our information in different states, by playing one state off against another. But as you can see what's happening with Europe, a new standard is being developing that's compatible between countries. And we will see a new legal standard compatible between most of the industrialized countries of the world. So is that standard to be the standard of China? Or is it to be the standard of the Netherlands? Is it to be the standard of the most free country or the least free country? So we have an opportunity to push that standard to be the union of press protection freedoms, the union of whistleblower freedoms, and the union of communications freedoms, and not their intersection.
Okay, so are there any comments or questions at this point in time that anyone would want to follow up with in the audience? If not, or on the panel. Yeah, sorry. There's a mic in the middle. Just line up and maybe we can have Karen in the...
Hi. It's okay? Like that. Okay. It's just a little remark about Annie's comment of the OSA, the Official Secrets Act. It's basically implemented here in the Netherlands as well. just a couple of months ago, 2 journalists were detained from the Telegraaf newspaper who released state secrets, which basically, I believe every journalist has the duty to release state secrets if that is to the general interest of the public. So just want to point out to everyone in the audience that it is happening here as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, so any other questions in the panel or any comments to what was said before? I think what we all see is that after the panelists have introduced themselves and their angle on this topic is that censorship is occurring from many perspectives on our society. So it's not easy to pinpoint it to just a problem that we have with the internet maybe, or a problem that we have in a government agency that is trying to prevent publication of information, or corporate interests. So it's a multi-level effort where people try to suppress information from various angles, and I think it is very important that we all understand and try to form one voice that is speaking out against any form of censorship, and not just concentrating on an effort on the internet or shaping transparency in a government. It needs to be a more harmonized effort that is, I think, has to be addressed.
So another piece of that, I was talking mostly about censorship in third world countries and China and really oppressive regimes. And then we've been hearing stories about censorship in the UK and Germany and Netherlands and the US. And we really have to think of this not as that censorship and this censorship. It's really one category that's affecting all of these different countries and all of these different citizens in each of these countries. We can't think of it as, I'm glad I don't live in China. We have to start thinking of it as one country and one world and one people, and how to solve the problems everywhere.
Hello, I wanted to ask a specific question, the question of media. Why do you think that journalists are very often very pro-censorship? Like the Spiegel has, in this news issue, a big tagline, internet should have limits, internet should be controlled. So why are journalists so pro-censorship?
Well, I'm pretty cynical when they are. I would say in the case of Spiegel, it's competition. It's that simple. The older journalist establishment feels that the internet, and rightly so actually, is economic competition. There's also a bit of playing to the popular mood. Mainstream publications, and it's perfectly reasonable for there to be mainstream publications, have to act like the good guy in order to be tolerated by their readers. And if their readers have a particular view about what is good and what is bad, it provides an opportunity for these organizations like the Spiegel to show that they are on the reader's side of the fence, even when that can be misleading the reader, even when that is self-destructive in the press.
Hi, yeah, I mean, I've had some experience of the media and the way it can be controlled from two sides of the fence, really. One, of course, there's the sort of legal sanctions, as I mentioned in my short introduction. But there's a sort of culture as well. Certainly in the UK, we have this establishment-type grouping of people, the political elite, whatever you want to call them. And the press should be holding the establishment to account, you know, big business, or government or intelligence agencies or whatever, but quite often they get seduced into being part of that establishment. So they have a sort of vested interest in not annoying the sources of their stories, i.e. their PR, too much. Otherwise, they don't get the stories, and then they lose their jobs. So it's quite a seductive thing, particularly when you get into the world of intelligence. You're part of the charm circle as well. You're getting stories nobody else gets. Certainly as well, just picking up on the intelligence side, there is a section, I should have mentioned before, called Information Operations within MI6, the External Intelligence Agency, which is there precisely to plant stories, fake stories in the media, or to manipulate and spin stories in the media to their own interests. So it can be quite a sort of hard-nosed approach to how you can control the media on certain issues. And certainly over the last decade, we've seen government spin of the media reaching new lows as well. So there's all sorts of different levers and mechanisms that can dissuade journalists from wanting to be the new Woodward and Bernstein. Quite often they just become mouthpieces for the establishment.
One word to the former news magazine Spiegel. I have the fear there are some very intelligent people, very few intelligent people, and many very very normal people. And my fear is they believe in that what they write and that what they don't write.
Another really important part of the explanation is that it's still not many journalists who really understand how the internet works. They know a couple of mechanisms for censorship in the real world, as in somebody publishes something and it's either ruled by a judge to be non-compliant and therefore it's taken off the shelves, or you know that you can't publish certain things, you can't publish slander, so you don't. And they think that the same mechanism as is applies to the internet, and they don't know all the intricacies of the net, so they translate their knowledge, analog knowledge, to a new medium that they don't fully understand, thus not understanding the implications of what they're saying. And for instance, with all these filtering lists, nobody... It starts by saying, yeah, it's against child pornography, and everybody goes, yeah, that's a good idea, actually we should. But nobody knows the intricacies of how the filtering works, and nobody understands that if we can't check what is being filtered, it's so easy to block more than what you actually want to block, even because sometimes different websites share a same IP address. So you might be filtering much more than you intend. That's the kind of technical stuff that especially Der Spiegel doesn't know two hoots about. So that adds another layer of complexity to the whole censorship issue.
Okay. I would like to shift the discussion a little bit, if I may, because I think the idea here also, at least as I understand it, is a little bit to figure out what's going on and what are we going to do about it. Yes. One of the things that worries me about this field and about a lot of other fields that are in our general sphere of interest and that have to do with law enforcement and intelligence is that it's extremely hard to figure out where policy is formulated and how it's being effectuated. It's extremely hard just in the European Union to figure out who are the current players, what are they doing, who is currently in charge, and which parts of EU policy are just whitewash of some country's national policy. A lot of new people need to get into this, need to get into policy research, political research, need to really start studying what their governments are doing at a very professional level. There are people already doing this, but I'm personally upset when I see how haphazard and coincidental some of our knowledge is. We need a much broader base. We need much more research to even understand a lot of the things that are going on, at least in my opinion.
I guess as well that this is a general issue that we see. There are too many people that might agree to certain things these days or oppose things and say, I don't want any censorship, but nobody is really up to going on the streets anymore, for example, or putting work into actively fighting a certain development in society. So I think we can have a next question as well.
Okay. So it's very interesting to see that we're now moving into embedded journalism, in society as a whole. In wartime, we call it embedded journalism, when people only see the part of reality that is shown to them by the armed forces when they are in law. But actually, my question was regressing to what Annie said, because she said if we had only had WikiLeaks, I think the powerful thing of having a face with Annie and actually showing that she is not a fraud and she's actually fleeing her country and leaving her country and being hunted and people being put in prison zone, it actually validates the leak. And as you said, rightfully so, people can actually make up really convincing tricks to take certain people out of the game. So I was curious what the idea of the people are, what the misinformation and agitprop type of thing and WikiLeaks and whistleblowing, how this dynamic can be sort of maintained or handled.
Thank you. I think it was Daniel who said on the first day that you can always tell if a whistleblower has credibility behind them and how hard the authorities go for them. And they really went for Shayla and myself. I mean, you know, as you say, fleeing across Europe and things. In terms of what we can do about that, where we can take it, I think we do need, well, I mean, if we can guarantee protection for whistleblowers, this is the difficult thing. I mean, I hear that WikiLeaks can, but if I were a whistleblower sitting in MI5 now and I'd witnessed torture, for example, and I wanted to blow the whistle on it, I would be incredibly frightened about where to go to and how to do it securely. And I think a community like this, for example, if they can really put together and publicize what they can do, then that might be very helpful indeed. Because I'm not sure how many people actually are really aware out in the greater world.
So I think what the question was getting at is when someone publishes something anonymously, and they're anonymous for their protection, which we facilitate them with, both legally and technically, that there's no face to the information and there's not the same emotional punch. Is that correct? Yes. Yeah. So, well, the answer is yes. We're not much help with that. But we can't expect every person, I wish they were. I mean, I wish every person in this room was an Annie or an Ellsberg or some of these other famous figures. But that's not going to happen. Maybe we can increase it a little by pushing a system where there's lots and lots of anonymous leaks coming out without any regulation at all. So we say either fix up the Freedom of Information Act, either provide protection for whistleblowers to come out with their face, or we will do it all without any legal oversight at all. But economically, there is not a niche in society for that many whistleblowers. Now, what do you do after you've blown the whistle? Well, some people can write books, some people can become professional activists, not making much money at all, but maybe just enough to live on. But there's actually not many roles in society. Maybe there's a couple in all of the United States with 300 million people. So I actually don't think there's a way to enable lots and lots of whistleblowers to come forward unless it's done in a legislative fashion, and there's got to be a driver for that legislative relief. There can be a bit of a press driver as well, or a community attitude. Even if there's not legislation, it damps down the police or authoritarian response to pull the action back down to community standards.
Can I just make one more point as well? There was a debate in the US about a month or two ago about exactly what protection intelligence whistleblowers should get in the States in the wake of the scandal around torture. And at the moment, they can go to the head of their agency, and then they can go to a congressional committee. And there were arguments, lots of debates about, well, should they have a little bit more protection? Because they are the people, the very people at the core of the state who are going to see the most heinous crimes if things go wrong. And yet, I believe that it was voted down, so there's no increased protection. But the arguments were interesting, that we need this ventilation for a healthy democracy, that we need this ventilation to stop groupthink, within the agencies that leads to illegal wars and torture in Guantanamo Bay as well. So I think, the signs of a healthy democracy should be leaks, and if that can lead to a critical mass, whether or not people have to self-immolate by going public, and it is, a career limiting move, should we call it? I used to say it was like being a Victorian fallen woman. Once you take the fatal step, there's no going back. So it is a big step, but having a forum where you can leak stuff without having to overturn your entire life is invaluable, I think. So thank you.
I have a comment and a question. My comment is, who can give me the guarantee that in 4 years we still have a government which has enough integrity to handle such a censorship system? Well, there's no such guarantee. That should be enough to stop building censorship systems. My question is to the whole panel, all of them may answer it if they want. Is there a way of winning this war? I mean, you've seen the Spiegel. They are basically writing what people want to read. So if the Spiegel writes what people want to read, people want censorship. Is this war winnable? Or do we have to, let it go boom and then say, we told you so?
Well, what I learned is that people tend not to be... Well, when they read something, they don't really think about what they're reading. So the information they have is the information they get. So, if the Spiegel writes censorship of child pornography websites is good, people believe that this is good, but the whole thing is not explained. People don't know what is behind that. And that's the problem. What we need to do is to explain what the system is, what is behind that, and what does that mean. Most of the people out there have no idea what is being installed right now. So it's easy for them to say, hey, that's cool. I'm against child pornography, and I think it's good that it's finally taken care of by the state.
How can't you be against child pornography? That's the
But
thing,
that's the point. Everyone that's fighting in Germany
trick.
against that law is not saying child pornography is good.
But that's easily said in the media, so it's a good way to like, saying being against the censorship law is like equal to be pro child pornography. It's easy to say in the media. So you can like zwart maken. Don't know the English word. Sorry.
Okay, well, in any way, the problem is that especially the topic of child pornography and censorship are really bad to compare. I mean, these are completely different issues. Child pornography is a society issue and censorship applies to ways of communication. So this is a completely different thing, and the problem is that these debates are being intermixed. And we fight on the wrong ground. We need to talk about censorship and focus about this and defend our ways of communication.
The hassle is all the time that child pornography is sort of used as a sweetener for censorship. It's the entry for censorship. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I meant. How can you be against? How can you be against? How can you not be against child pornography?
We are. Basically, anyone is against child pornography, but that's not what anyone said.
I'm on the verge of liking it because of
Okay. Either I'm missing a point, but maybe we will get the next question. So.
I think the previous person was trying to suggest that the media uses child pornography as a smear tactic to smear people who are pro and censorship. Okay. Anyway, my question goes back to some of the media things we mentioned earlier. I think WikiLeaks is a great project and what they do is awesome. But I think their Achilles heel is how much they rely on the media to spread the news of some document that they have leaked. And what with, I think it was Annie, the MI5 lady, said earlier, that MI5 and MI6 can control the media like that. And also commercial interests like Rupert Murdoch and his group can sort of control the media. can we really rely on the media to impartially sort of promote documents, or will they hide things that are bad for them?
Remember, it's not just the traditional media anymore. When a document is released that seems important, particularly if we say it's important, then all of you can assess it and analyze it. Every blogger, every country in the world can write something about this. So what really keeps the mainstream media mainstream is it has access to sources that most of you don't. If those same sources are presented to you, then you can write some comment on it. So we're not limited to the mainstream media. In terms of people like Annie, I mean, I spoke before about that. There is a case, actually. So we did a famous case last year, Bank Julius Baer case, which revealed money laundering from the Swiss banks through the Cayman Islands. Once that information was in the public, anonymously in the public, and we were sued, then it became an interesting issue. The moral line was already lined up, and at that stage, the whistleblower involved came forward and didn't suffer a legal consequence as a result, because he had seen which way the wind was blowing, where the legal attack was, where the press interest was. So maybe you can do hybrid circumstances, but I agree. My friends say that have been fired from these newspapers in the United States, as they rationalize, that the feeling to them is as if they had been totally censored, because you can be economically censored. In fact, that is the biggest part of the censorship pyramid, is at the bottom of people who economically can't communicate. Not just journalists that have been fired, but people don't have access to the internet at all, as an example. And others are put under economic threats or pressure to not say particular things. It's something very difficult to deal with, as is self-censorship. When people see that someone is very, on the rare circumstances, even in Russia it's rare, where a journalist is murdered, this pushes down from the top. You can see the murder, but you can't see all the people that stop writing and stop speaking out. That's invisible. And the same in the United Kingdom with the many, many libel actions that occur in the United Kingdom that don't even reach the law court. You won't hear about them, but they certainly have an effect on the newspaper industry. Something I should just mention, since I've spoken about the traditional media industry, which is important and which has won many legal protections for publishing. How did it win those legal protections for its industry? How did it manage to get a constitutional amendment in the United States? It managed to do that through its power as an industry, to protect itself, to introduce laws, to protect its operations. As most of those monopoly media industries lose their monopoly in a global sense, as they're competing with bloggers that have no unions behind them, I think we'll see a state where there is no journalistic force as a powerful industry to keep up those protections. So we need to set the standard now as the world globalizes and the new laws are being made. Why we still have the remnants of a powerful media industry, because pretty soon it's not going to be there. There'll be distribution industries, but there won't be journalistic industries.
Let's make one very small point about the media as well. There's a very good book that came out in the UK last year by a respected investigative journalist called Nick Davis, called Flat Earth News. And he actually had a study done at a university in the UK and established that journalists on mainstream national media, be it print or TV or whatever, have to produce twice as much copy per day in half as much time per day. So this has led to what he has nicknamed churnalism. So they just churn out PR reports and puff and reports coming out of the government without checking their facts, without going out and talking to people or anything. So it just becomes this treadmill. And I think the general public is becoming increasingly aware and increasingly sceptical about what is reported in the mainstream media for a variety of reasons, including the lies that took us into the war, etc. But, this is something that has been established. It's a sort of factual analysis of what's going on for journalists now. So I think that's quite interesting. They're painting themselves out of the picture.
I don't think so much about journalism, about censorship. I think about the aspect of manipulation. On the one side, they collect our privacy uncensored, our personal data, and store it in great files. Perhaps some of you work in this business. And on the other side, they have the possibility to manipulate us by collecting the information we get. And they also know on where are the triggers in our person and our life they can use to bring us to buy pink shoes or aluminium hats or things like that. And we are thinking we are funny and we are thinking we are cool, but we only manipulate it. And there I see I don't like this. I want to live my own life. I think would be good.
Okay.
Bring more input.
My name is Jørgen. I'm with the IT Political Association of Denmark. And I think that one thing we have to realize is that most of these laws that are passed is passed because of the easy opinions. When after September 11th, everybody was screaming for politicians to do something against terrorism. And of course, the politicians chose the easy way. They chose to do something that does just look like they were doing something. And while they were doing that, all kind of other implications came with it. So we ended up with locking of everybody here in Europe, and especially in Denmark, where we were the first to implement it. I think that what we have to do is try to explain more what the reasons are and how it really works out, and show the difference between that. We did that in Denmark, and as a result, it has almost become legit to talk about the errors with the locking. So you're not now you are not automatically accused of being a terrorist if you talk against the locking. And because we spoke out, other people would feel inclined to speak out too. And actually, two former officers of the police secret service in Denmark actually had the courage to go out and speak against it too, and say that this won't work. But it was only after we did the groundwork that allowed other people to come out. Now we see it with censorship, and child pornography is what they use in Denmark as an excuse. And I think it's really important to show that this is just an excuse, and it doesn't help. That's the two reasons. I think, Karen, what you said is about the excuse for the police is really a good point. I think the groundwork is that somebody has to have the courage to go out and say, we do not support this for these technical reasons, and that doesn't mean that we are for child pornography. That will allow other people to come out. And in that regard, I'll just use the opportunity to thank you at WikiLeaks because you leaked, of course, the Danish list of the child pornography filter, where we could show that amongst other things, there was this Dutch driving school for some reason on the list, and nobody could explain why.
Thanks. Okay. So basically, I think what we can see is that the experiences are always the same. So we are finding excuses, politicians are finding excuses, and we all know about this. Then we can see, for example, in Germany that we filed a big online petition. There were 134,000 people that signed this petition, and still the state does not really care about this. So we're all struggling on a national level, and I think maybe we should start focusing the debate as well a bit about what we can do about this. So we cannot, it's okay that we all understand that this is an issue and we're all sitting in this tent and we're debating it, and I guess it's like we're preaching to the prophets. But in the end it will be important what happens after this session. And what happens if you all go out here tomorrow and you know that we would like to start an organization that has a global voice against it, but it's not something that anyone on this panel is able to manage alone, or us 8 together. So it's important that you all start thinking about how you can involve and that you have to act up actively on this topic. We can't sit there and just passively grab these things. So, like you said, it's important to educate people, but it's more than just understanding it. You have to actively tell it to everyone, and you have to tell them why they actively have to defend their position, their freedoms and everything.
Yeah. What is interesting is that if you do this enough and write on blogs and people get out and talk about it, then the mainstream media will pick up on it. We have seen that with terrorism in Denmark, and we hope we'll do the same with censorship.
And actually, to some degree, we had the same thing in the Netherlands about this child pornography filter. Everybody sort of thought it was a good idea. After I investigated the list and showed that actually there were Dutch sites on that Finnish list that the Dutch police hadn't done anything about, and the list actually served to hide the police not doing anything, there was quite a change in atmosphere. It does help to publish, it does help to talk. And as Julian said in his opening lecture, courage is contagious. It really helps if people stand up, and but also we need to support those who stand up. We need to support the Annies. We need to support the Julians. That really, really helps.
One moment.
It's right, it does help. It was the same that happened in Germany. There was kind of huge media coverage, but the problem is we have that law, and we have not won the fight, and there will be other fights coming up, and we have to get better in what we do. So that's why we're here, and that's why we ask your help to come up with a good solution for that. Yeah, well, this is the Freedom Against Fear demonstration, which takes place on September the 12th in Berlin. Maybe Padalun can say something more about it, because he's organizing it.
One comment first to one sentence just. Even it helps. We don't have to accept censorship. Yeah. The guy just says we have to explain to people it don't helps, but this is not the point. Okay, to the demonstration. We make an international action day. International means we make something in Berlin, and you have to do something in your countries on the 9/12. 9/11 is easier to say. It's one day after the 9/11. And we make a great demonstration. It's a little bit like 1st May for the worker movement. It's for the people who know what internet is, what internet society is, to show, to go to the street, to be visible, not only on the internet, but in the newspapers, in the printed newspapers, not on the website of Spiegel Online. This is, everybody here in this room read it, but nobody else. And so we have to go to the street, we have to talk to newspapers, we have to write Forderungen, the word claims, we have to claim our rights, and we have to be loud, we have to go to the cafes, we have to speak to our mother. Really, when your mother understands you, you are good, you can go to the street and speak to everybody and everybody will understand you. And you have to try it, we have to try it, and we should do it. And I hope you in the Netherlands, Rob, you make a great day on the 12th September? Huh? No? You will do it? Wrong people organize it, okay, someone else will do it, okay. I hope that in Prague there will be a great event, and so on, or you come all to Berlin. I want 82 million people in Berlin on this day. Also, you're welcome.
Just to structure this a little bit again in an attempt, is anyone asking anything specific about the organization of how we could place a global effort on structuring this? This is, I think, where we should lead to, and in an effort not to have everyone leaving this tent because people are getting distracted or so, and it's going on for a bit, we might have to have a meeting with people that would be interested in actively helping this thing. So whoever has a question to or a comment on that can go. Sorry.
Yeah, hi, my name is Gustav and I'm from Sweden. I would first, the topic is like, what can we do to prevent censorship and how do we solve it? And first I would say I really appreciate activism and hacktivism that's really needed for fighting it. But the problem is the policy making, and the policy problem is the laws that are passed in the parliament. And what we have done in Sweden with that is that we have formed a political party called the Pirate Party. We have made it into the European Parliament, and we have replaced the bad politicians. So now we are voting for the good laws. So my question is, what does it need, what does it take for other countries to form another party that will take in place into the Parliament to change the laws? That's what we need, and that's what we can do.
I guess in that respect, the Pirate Party is sort of like a grassroots movement. So it came out of the public, it's related to a special interest, and it's just covering one small angle of society. And I think for the future, this is what we need. We need groups that do not try to cover all the big aspects of society that we have, but rather very focused groups that have an expert understanding of these things. So in that respect, the Pirate Party is something that is forming and it's spreading all over Europe, and it's representing one facet of society that is very important to be kept up. So,
Hi. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm very much interested in helping out with this newly founded organization, and just that was my comment basically.
Okay, a room full of people. Like to remember this face. He has taken on responsibility. So,
and I would like to
first one to step out.
And I would like to get together, and exchange ideas on how we could all make a difference.
Okay,
thank you
great.
very much.
Thanks.
Niels, also from IT Pool of Denmark. Rob was right to start with. We have to stand up and fight for the people making this happen, especially anonymity. It's very interesting when you see the Tor project, that you are able to run Tor and even Tor exit nodes in China, Iran, and so on. It might actually get harder than that in Europe. That's why we have to fight every single initiative. For example, child porn, it used to be in Denmark, it was illegal to sell or download child porn. Last month or 2 months ago, it was also made illegal to view it. So if you by random saw it on your page, on your browser, you could be fined from it or put in jail. Of course, that means if you have an open access point or run a Tor exit node, the police might come knocking at your door. So we have a chilling effect against anonymity here. And the same thing for the HAR2009 law, there might be a fine for having an open access point. The next step will having will be for a Tor exit node. So we have to fight all these things, and we have to stand up that anonymity is important in itself.
Okay, yes, it's agreed.
Yeah, so very quickly to answer that, there are a bunch of different pieces of that problem that we need to solve. The technology is an important piece, but there's a lot more past that. In particular, we need to get a lot of people out there understanding how society needs to be. It's not, this stuff is bad, it needs to be censored, and we're going to tell you a big list of everything but not let you see the list of stuff we should censor. We need to explain to people why we need these freedoms, why we need anonymity, why we need the ability to not be censored, not just in the form of tools that let you be free, but we need all the people around the world to believe that these tools should exist. So it's not just, let's build better tools, it's also, we need to change the whole society so they believe in these tools. And if society continues thinking that we should censor everything and freedom is bad and who needs that stuff, then you're right, things like Tor are going to fall apart because nobody will be willing, as Rob was saying at the beginning, to actually step up and put a name to these things and make them happen.
So, two more quick questions, hopefully, and thanks.
My name's Stuart. I guess my question would be, is anything at all going on at an international level coordinating this effort? And if so, what?
Well, we're not aware of anything that really covers all the topics. That's why actually we think something needs to be formed. So.
In Europe, there is EDRI, European Digital Rights Organization, which is a sort of coalition of national bits of freedoms and EFFs. And then again, they don't have much lobby power. But they do coordinate, they do exchange information. So people do keep sort of up to date. But it's not a giant organization and nothing compared to EFF or anything the like.
It is actually something that a lot of organizations share an interest in, but no one is coordinating a global voice against that particular issue, and that is the problem. It touches everyone from civil liberties to the media protection and whoever. So, okay.
Can I do a blatant self-advertising, which I'm not involved in? I work for Internet Society. Internet Society has a working group. It's international. It's quite a big group of people from different countries that are tackling the Hadopi fallout.
Okay, so get in touch with us, with your organization.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
And the cool thing is they do have lobby power. They get the .org money, and they have like FinSurf and all kinds of cool people from the internet history, and they can lobby and they can argue like hell. So
okay, thanks for that.
Hello, I'm sorry to be here a second time. You say I should speak to my parents or my mom. So actually I spoke a lot to my girlfriend. She doesn't understand me. This is not based on the relationship we have. But based on the loop. I say, okay, well, the German government spends a lot of money to establish this this machine of censorship. Yeah, well, but child porn is bad. Yeah, well, but you see, it's also a vicious cycle. Always. So, what shall I say? And as a side note, we do agree that censorship of propaganda of the Third Reich, for example, no one says anything against it. So there are institutions that censor and the public agrees with it. So how can we convince the public that this now is another issue, a different issue?
I only had a short comment to the point that the government is spending lots of money to install that censorship infrastructure. It's actually not because the ISPs are spending that money, not the government.
Learn to talk. How can I learn to talk and to bring a message to people? You go to the streets, you make a stand, and you talk to everybody who comes the way. And you try it, and after 2 weeks you are very good. Yes, it's the only way to learn it. Just talk. Go to people. Sometimes you have people that you stand and say, okay, you are right, go away. And sometimes you really learn to bring your information to the people. And you have to learn it, go to the street, make word, print posters and give it to the people.
With regards to your girlfriend, one really, really proper response is, yeah, child pornography is bad, but were you looking for it? Do you need such a filter? The answer is probably no. The filter is being implemented for people who don't need it because they're not looking for porn anyway. Those who want child pornography are usually smart enough to evade these tools that are being put into place, which actually is begging the question, why do we need such a filter? Because the people to whom it actually makes a difference, the people who can't reach stuff anymore, are the ones who weren't looking for it to begin with. So it's sort of that is a way that you can explain it. You don't need to argue whether child pornography is good or not. You can dispute it on the level of effectivity and whether it serves its purpose. It doesn't, so it's useless.
Okay, these 2 more questions, and then I guess we have to end that debate. People are going to get tired or so. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not European, so I'm sorry if my question sounds funny. So as far as I understand, we think that some group of people are trying to control the internet, and we build this movement in order to have more freedom of speech. So my question is that, how are we so sure that our movement is not actually controlled?
Is that it's not actually controlled?
Yes.
Well, I guess, at least from the experience that we have with WikiLeaks, it's a lot about trust. So it's going to be built by people for people, and it's going to be based on the trust that we here met each other, and I guess that's the only basis for any kind of organization you can have anyways. So just make sure that you know the people you're dealing with and build it from that. So.
Well, but I believe that we are human beings, so we all have our weakness. So weakness should cause some fear.
Yeah, well, not sure what that is aiming at anyway, actually. So, I mean, I understand it's a problem that we need to structure this organization and it be trusted and these things, but that's not something we can, I don't know, explain right now on stage, I guess. So you're very welcome to join us after this talk or maybe tomorrow, and then we discuss how we're going to proceed with that. And your opinion is perfectly welcome.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Yes, a small comment. One of the persons before me said that censorship of, for example, Nazi propaganda would be a good thing, if I heard him correctly. And I like to disagree with that, because what you see, for example, on Swedish neo-Nazi forums, when there's a published case of, for example, a Holocaust denier getting charged in Germany. What happens then is that the neo-Nazis all go, hey, look at us, we must be right. Why else would they be charging us or preventing us from speaking in other ways? We actually censoring, for example, Nazi propaganda would work for the Nazis, not against them.
Yeah, and it's actually, censoring is always working for those who are oppressed. It's the same with child pornography. It's pushing people more into the underground where they can organize themselves. So, yeah, okay. So, I guess we couldn't call it a night, at least for now. If anyone in the audience is really keen to help with building this organization, providing infrastructure, doing some of the groundwork that will be needed, please join us after the talk here in the front so we can note down some details or can exchange addresses. And Yeah, that's one thing that will have to be done. Someone has to set up a mailing system for a mailing list so we can communicate with each other. So we need some people that are willing to help with the groundwork and help distribute and share the information about this. So thanks a lot for all your attention, and I hope we provided some interesting questions or answers.